All right. Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome to episode 106 of BIM After Dark Live. My name is Jeff, also known as the Revit Kid. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Autodesk Construction Cloud and lots of different options, or lots of different aspects of it. My guest, who I'll introduce in a little bit, he was on the show about 2 years ago, and we focused pretty much on Revit Cloud Worksharing and setting up cloud models and linking and publishing and consuming and all of the good stuff. We could touch on that if you guys are really want to dive into it, but we're going to sort of go beyond that today. We want to talk a lot about what else exists in this Autodesk Construction Cloud. I know that in my day job working with design teams and contractors, there's a little bit of unknown that exists within this platform, and for the most part, everyone's just kind of hosting cloud models and maybe not even ever going back to it. And so I'm really excited to sort of peel that apart, as well as potentially ask some tough questions of our guests on my experience within the ACC environment, and see if we can make them shake a little bit. Before we do introduce our guest, though, I did want to spend a quick moment to thank this season sponsor, which is BIM Box. For those of you who have been following the channel over the last 3 years, as I've been producing these live streams and videos, this computer, as you see here, this BIM Box and this BIM Box here, these laptops, they have been powering the show since the beginning. So I've been using BIM Box laptops and desktops for over 4 years now, and they are my go-to for anything Revit and AEC based, whether it's Twinmotion, Enscape, Revit, and so on and so forth. So BIM Box makes laptops and desktops that are designed and tuned, overclocked, all the good stuff for what we do. So if you're in the market for a new laptop or desktop that one runs Revit and all the great tools that we all use, then head on over to bimbox.bimafterdark.com. Make sure you let them know that you heard it here, and talk to all the good sales folks over there, because they are a cool group of people. So thanks, BIMBox, for that. And without further ado, and let me know if the audio sounds good, guys. I'm getting a little thing here that says it might be clipping a little bit. So let me know if my voice is clipping a little bit on your end, guys. But it looks good. Okay, so without any further ado, let's introduce our guest to the show. Let me make sure your audio's on, Scott. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Everything come through loud and clear?
I hear you. I'm assuming everyone else does. If anyone has any issues, make sure you go on the chat. We will be checking the chat throughout this episode if you're here live. So feel free to ask your burning questions on Autodesk Construction Cloud and all of the adjacent aspects to it. But first, let's introduce Scott Davis. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's kind of amazing. You said at the beginning 106. I think my last episode was 62?
62 or 68. Yeah, but it was in the 60s for sure. And I think it was almost 2 years ago to the day. I think it was probably around November, December, something like that of 2 years ago, which is pretty wild when you think about it.
Yeah. And back then, the topic was really kind of all things design collaboration. We were really talking Revit Cloud Worksharing, because it was and maybe still a little bit of a mystery, but I think with help of that video, it's helped dispel a lot of those myths, right? You and I were chatting earlier that you still hear people using that video a lot of how to get the Revit Cloud Worksharing set up, but the whole idea around what's a shared methodology, what's consumed, what's live linking, and it was all of these different terms and things that we are really going over on that. And I think you've gotten some really good feedback on that people said it was very helpful in kind of understanding what all of those different things meant when it came to Revit Cloud Worksharing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably the fifth most watched live stream on the channel, and yeah, all of my discussions with folks when I talk about BIM 360 or ACC. A lot of people reference that, and it sounds like it's becoming sort of an informal training guide for people setting up Revit Cloud Worksharing. So I appreciate you coming on and making that content and hosting it on my channel.
Sure, no, I love it. That's what I do. So it's crazy. I've been with Autodesk now 17 years, almost 17 years. Next March is 17 years, and that's my job, is to come talk to people about technology. So I really love what I do. I love being a part of your channel. The couple times I've been, and hopefully get invited back to do some more. I just enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking about this stuff. I got excited about Revit originally from my good friend Jim Balding. I saw who's on the line, who introduced me to Revit in the first place way back in the day, and was super excited about the technology then. which led to me actually getting my job at Autodesk. And, if there's anybody that says that they really love what they do, I can say I truly love what I do. I don't feel like it's a job. I get to talk about cool stuff to people like you, architects and engineers and contractors and owners and others that are out there. So just really enjoy what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, and I will definitely put some links to Scott's Twitter, as well as some other information and where you can reach out to him, because he's definitely an approachable folk over at Autodesk that you guys can reach out to and either complain and heckle or actually talk to about meaningful information. And Scott's always been a resource for me, especially on the ACC side, as we've all been trying to figure out this crazy new platform that I guess we can still call it new, even though it's been around a little bit, but it feels new all the time because I don't know, it's constantly changing, so to speak.
I would go back to your it's always meaningful. I don't care if you guys contact me and you need to complain about something. Complaining is meaningful at the same time, right? It means that you're having an issue with something. And I think I would speak for really most of the Autodesk team. I'll say most, because I don't think maybe all of them feel that way, but most take the positive and the negative. We need to take all of that in and help to continue to improve these tools, because they are new, and we do have our own learning curve with these things. And we appreciate all the feedback, both constructive and otherwise. Definitely.
So I think before we jump into the meat and potatoes of all this, there's one question that I feel like I've had a lot of these conversations, and I think a lot of, especially on the design side, there's a lot of, I don't know, confusion, but maybe just not really sure what to do. BIM 360 and ACC, right? I mean, we talked about this 2 years ago, right? They're two platforms. I think during the episode you had both open. It sounds like when I talk to my design partners, most of them, a lot of them are still on BIM 360 because that's kind of where they started, right? And so they're trying to figure out, like, is it going to exist still? Is it transitioning to ACC? Should they transition to ACC? What's the difference? What's the benefit? And so, like, maybe since you are representing Autodesk and we're here talking about ACC, maybe it's time to just sort of talk a little bit about, like, what is Autodesk's vision on these two platforms? And as if I'm an architect right now who just spent 2 years setting up BIM 360, I know, because I worked in both platforms, that it's pretty much the same thing. So if you've done the work on BIM 360, you're gonna deal with it in ACC. But, like, is there going to be a moment where you say, well, everything's going ACC and BIM 360 gets legacy? Like, what do you think? What's the Autodesk approach right now?
I think you kind of nailed it. The Autodesk approach is to have one platform. We currently have two platforms today. You mentioned it, the BIM 360, which is really the legacy platform going forward. Autodesk Construction Cloud, ACC, is the platform going forward. So the recommendation I make to the customer that I work with directly is that all new projects should start in ACC. Keep legacy projects, maybe ones that aren't easy to make the transition into ACC, keep them in BIM 360 for now. Like you said, it's something that you're used to. It's what you're familiar with. It makes it easier to move that way. The other side of it is that we don't have a great tool yet, and I say yet because we're working on something, and I don't know exactly what that is yet. But we don't have a tool that says take a BIM 360 project and move it in its entirety into the ACC platform. And when I say in its entirety, I'm not just talking files and folders, because we can already do that today. We have an ACC Connect that can take a project in BIM 360 and reconstruct your file structure, move your files over. But what if you had R5s? What if you have submittals? You had issues, you've got markups, you've got all this other metadata. What happens to all of that? We don't have a good methodology to move that over yet today. So that's kind of where I say, like, if you're in BIM 360 and the project's a good ways along and you're not missing some of the additional features of ACC, stay in BIM 360. It's not, from what I understand, it's not going anywhere anytime soon, because a lot of customers like you have legacy projects that are, maybe you're working on an airport and the project timeline is 10 years from now. Like, it's going to be an ACC for quite a while. We can't just turn it off because you guys, our customers, are saying we need to continue to work in this environment for years to come at this point. The main development stack, the main progress being made is on the Autodesk Construction Cloud side of things, on ACC.
Right.
So that would be my thing. And so what the real big difference is, so I think I talked about this last time, our last episode I was on, is the why. Why do we have two? And it was really because of our acquisition of PlanGrid, the company. And when we looked at PlanGrid and after acquisition and probably pre-acquisition as we're trying to plan this thing out, we wanted it incorporated into our cloud, our PlanGrid tools into the cloud. In order to bring those into what was the BIM 360 environment, the analogy was, changing all the tires on a bus while going down the road with a bus full of people all at the same time. Like it was nearly impossible to incorporate PlanGrid in. So it was kind of a code split. Let's start this new thing, ACC, incorporate the PlanGrid, or now the ACC build. So all of the old kind of PlanGrid functionality plus is ACC build is in that direction, is in ACC. And you don't see those build-oriented tools inside of the BIM 360 product. And that's really the main difference between the two.
Yeah, and for anyone who may be in BIM 360 and not really familiar with ACC or scared of it, I will tell you that for the most part, it is the same thing. Especially for your Revit users, they won't notice a difference at all, other than where they would log. Even when you log in, you see BIM 360 and ACC at the same time. But Revit Cloud Worksharing models all work the same. The only difference that I've seen from an administrative standpoint is there's a little tweak in some of the permissions and how they're treated from folder level to roles and stuff like that. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing. And so yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking. And I was also curious what Autodesk's approach to it, which sounds to me, that sounds like the better approach. And that's honestly what we've taken as well. Is we have our legacy projects that are still in BIM 360, and any new projects have been started in ACC. Obviously. Yeah. Because the UI is a little different and there's some things, it can be kind of confusing for people. But for the most part, the functionality wise, we haven't dealt with too much. But what you also said in there is that a lot of the development is happening on the ACC side. And so that's just something to keep in mind. I think for the design teams, when I look at it, a lot of the usage they're getting out of it still, and that's why we're having this episode, is mostly Revit Cloud Worksharing, and it's a place to host your cloud, which is a phenomenal tool and something that we've been waiting for forever when it comes to Revit server and all the LAN and all the stuff we've dealt with in the past. Like this tool does work extremely well for cloud hosting. Revit, like Cloud Worksharing is a game changer for Revit users. But I've also noticed that a lot of the design teams aren't using all these web applications that exist, whether it's in BIM 360 or ACC, on top of just the Revit Cloud Worksharing, and that's kind of the next step that I'm hoping that we can dig into a little bit today.
I see that a lot too with my customers, is that Revit Cloud Worksharing is where it's at, and some users don't even really know that this whole web portal exists.
Right. If you're not the one setting up the central model and all you're doing is going to Revit, going to the home screen and clicking it, you might not even realize that there's a web portal at all, like that there's all these applications that sit on top of it. And that's, again, the reason for this episode today. So before we jump into that, and that's, I think, where we want to go next, I will take one quick moment to talk about the BIM After Dark community. I've spent this season of BIM After Dark Live highlighting some of our community members and talking about the community. And so what we're going to do is take a quick minute to listen to a video. I believe Tom is our member that we highlight in this video. And so take a listen to Tom, and I'll tell you how, if you're interested, how you can become part of the BIM After Dark community.
Yeah, so I'm Tom Flaherty. I'm currently working for a residential design firm called Lifestyle Design. We specialize in production residential for national home builders. Just recently claimed the title of BIM manager. I told my boss, I'm like, hey, I'm doing it anyway. I'm taking this title. He's like, okay, sounds good. I recently got licensed, now licensed architect in Wisconsin and Texas. Because I've stumbled up on a couple of videos that you did on YouTube about how to do a standing seam roof, and I still use that hack. and it was just being able to learn that stuff. Everybody uses that term, the hive mind, and that's kind of what it is. You throw something out there and there's at least one person who's done it or tried it and can guide you along the way, and everybody is so open about sharing everything they've learned, whether it was from you or somebody else. Or it's really made me a lot better modeler, a lot better Revit user, and it frees, and being able to use all these hacks frees up my time to learn other more exciting things.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. So that was Tom, who's a member of the BIM After Dark community. I think I might have cut it off earlier there, but if you guys are interested in joining the BIM After Dark community, head on over to community.bimafterdark.com. If you saw the live stream last week where I ran through my residential Revit template, we actually had quite a few members join up to check out the template, and so we're buzzing in the community. As you saw, it as courses, templates, files, sample files. We do office hours. So tomorrow I have an office hour. We've done, I think, 75 office hours so far. So that's almost every other week. We do a Zoom call with members and we just ask Revit questions and help each other out in Revit and BIM and all kinds of related things. So head on over to community.bimafterdark.com if you're interested, and I hope to see you guys over there. All right, so while that ad break was running, we were talking a little bit about permissions, and we saw some and admin rights, stuff like that, and we saw some chat in there. So I don't want to spend the entire episode on this because as I'm living in the ACC and BIM 360 world every day, I completely can empathize with some of the challenges, and so I don't know, maybe without having to get too far into the weeds on admin control, maybe just talk a little bit about I guess maybe the differences or the differences between ACC and BIM 360, or maybe at least maybe what the plans are to sort of alleviate some of the frustrations people might be running into as far as data control and admin rights and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think Alan Engel popped up and said, admin rights in BIM 360 kind of feature parity in ACC. Mm-hmm. We're working towards that for sure. I mean, I think it's hugely important. In fact, not just feature parity, but just one thing I heard at AU a lot, hopefully some of you guys got to go attend AU this year, either in person or got to see some of the virtual events. I got to do a lot of the futures briefings, which are kind of the things that are not on the class list at AU that you have to find out about, be invited to, those kind of things. So I got to see a bunch of those going on. One thing I heard a lot was the need and the development cycle towards a lot more granularity, meaning basically giving you guys the means to have the data be in kind of any fashion you want. And that goes to permission settings as well. So more granular data as far as roles, more granular data as far as permissions, better ways to understand permission structure in either ACC or BIM 360, because they're both a little bit tough, but the way they inherit the permissions down, you can't really set a top level permission level and then go in and move somebody else's permission levels away from that down the tree, right? So it's really tough sometimes with permission. So we definitely need some better ways of doing that. We've started to move there a little bit. Anybody that's been into the admin portal lately, you'll notice that the tree or the way you actually add users has changed a little bit. I could pull it up quickly. It's probably easier just to describe it. You may have seen it. You add users, and then next to the users themselves, you actually go back to the kind of BIM 360 style, which is to check on or check off, like little slider toggles. They need the model coordination module. They need design collaboration. They need cloud work sharing. And you turn those things on or off. So it's kind of going back to that BIM 360 style. So what I see going forward is getting to that style, but then giving you all a lot better access, especially the administrators of your sites, a lot better access into how do I go about assigning roles? How do I go about assigning permissions? How do I make sure that the right people are getting to the right data at the right time? And the others are excluded from data that I don't want them to see. One topic at hand that we hope to cover somewhat tonight is bridge. And so the idea behind bridge is that you all work in your own environments, meaning, Jeff, you have your ACC account or hub or whatever. It's called different things. Like we like to call them accounts. We call them hub in the BIM 360 days. Now they're whatever. So it's one of those naming convention things.
Yep.
But in your account, You manage your users, you invite your users, you give your users the permissions. Now, when you invite in all of your consultants in a non-bridge project, now you're also having to manage all of them as well, right? Which
Hmm.
can get really difficult in a hurry because you may not even know all of these users' names. Somebody from your structural has called and said, "Can you add these people to the project and
Hmm.
give them rights?" And you're like, "Who are these people and what are they doing?" So in a bridge environment, you work in your own environment and you just choose what you're going to share or bridge across these different accounts. So your structural has their own project set up for that
Hmm.
for the same project, and your mechanical engineers has their own project, and we choose to bridge those things together. And you control your access rights, they control their access rights, their people, their licensing, all of that.
Hmm.
And with that comes a whole nother level of kind of permission structure and control. So we definitely need to figure that out and make it as streamlined as possible, make it as easy as possible for all of these different kind of stakeholders on projects to understand.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that bridge only works between ACC and ACC. However, there is,
60, right?
yeah, I'm not wrong in that, right? It's only between ACC,
No, it's ACC only,
and
unfortunately. Well,
there's no BIM 360 to BIM 360 bridge either, right? That doesn't. So the one thing that I'm not sure what the development plan is for this, but there's a tool that's an invite-only sort of reach-out tool called Autodesk Replication Tool, ART, which I don't remember what it was called before that. It was a code name before that. But that tool, and I've used it in a couple projects, working with Autodesk, it actually is replicating files from BIM 360 to ACC. So it's kind of like bridge for those.
yeah.
And it actually works really well for that purpose. But I'm assuming, with bridge and assuming the future state is most, if not everyone, on ACC. As far as that helps, I think a lot with the permissions control we're talking about, because you're kind of hosting your own hubs and servers. I could see that also creating some interesting setup issues as far as like folder structures in each person's hubs and all that stuff and data management and whatnot. But as far as the cloud work sharing and Revit files and whatnot, and I haven't done it enough on Bridge to understand things like publishing. So if you publish a linked if you have a link file in your Revit Cloud Workshare and you publish it, for example, you publish a view that has that file in it. As it stands right now, unless that file is Cloud Workshared on your server, it does, that published view doesn't necessarily work in certain tools because it needs to be hosted on your server. With Bridge, is that it's not hosted on your server, so is that still an issue?
The way you describe it, I don't think it's an issue. So what is it happening? We could go back to our original episode I was on last time. We go back to the whole shared and consume methodology. The one thing with ACC Bridge is there isn't currently a live work sharing.
Got
Right? I
it.
can't link something live because what happens when you bridge is you actually have to use that package and publish methodology.
Got it.
Because that actually triggers the event of taking that file and copying it from your account over to their account. It's that kind of period of time of, I'm ready to go share this. I'm going to go bridge this. I'm going to go share that with this other consultant.
Got
And
it.
so you're really working in that kind of either shared or consume methodology. There really
Right.
isn't a live linking.
So there's
that goes
no
on.
live, no live linking when you're in Bridge because you're
Yeah.
pulling through the published version of that file. So let's
Correct.
I see you have it open. Maybe we should just walk through it for people who maybe haven't seen Bridge in action, or the setup, or how easy it is to set up.
Yeah. So screens live. Are we looking at?
Yep, we're looking at
Okay.
your screen. Yep.
So we got. I've got a project up. I've got this Stoughton Towers. I'm in ACC, of course. I think right off the bat, one thing that people should realize is that generally what you can do now is you can go to the URL acc.autodesk.com, and it will automatically default or redirect to this kind of /projects you see at the top. And this is going to show you all of your projects. This isn't limited to just ACC, so it's kind of a good one-stop shop for projects you have in ACC, and then you can also see that I still have some of these projects in BIM 360 by the B icon going on. So that's a great way to have a one-stop shop really for all of your project team members. Just go to acc.autodesk.com, see all the projects that are a part of, whether they're BIM 360 or ACC. And then if I have just had another tab open already, Under the design collaboration module, so obviously when I'm in a project, depending on, again, user access, permissions, licensing, etc., what modules you have access to, you can have access into design collaboration, which then I have on. And one of the options on the left-hand menu over here is Bridge. And so what Bridge does is basically, first and foremost, allows you to set up a request, so to speak, a bridge between your project and one of your partners, one of your consultants' projects, right? At first blush, it actually doesn't share anything. All it does is essentially builds the bridge, for lack of a better way of describing it, between the two projects. So you go bridge a new project. It's basically going to say, I can type in here, Jeff Pinheiro at Turner, whatever your email is, and a message for the invitee. Hey, I'd like to bridge a project with you. Send an invitation. Jeff, you're then going to get that email that says, hey, Scott wants to bridge project 004 Snowden Towers with your project Snowden Towers. Obviously we're trying to match up the same projects. Do you want to accept this or not? So you have that choice right away. Nah, it's Scott. I don't want to do that. Or, no, that's fair. I would rather work in a bridge environment. So once you agree, then what you can do is come back in here and you're going to see that you have these projects that are now bridged together. What the project name is at my sample site that I have, we've got some internal projects and things going on, different accounts going on. It shows you then don't do this, but how many people are admins of those projects? So in my sample little internal project, we've got 14 admins.
Nice.
Don't do that. don't have too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
So then what we can do is talk about outgoing and incoming. So what do I want to share from my project to your project, Jeff? Right. So that's the outgoing. So in this case, I've got a named outgoing share called electric. It's files, and I'm going to send it to this other project that who's on my team, called Snowden Towers Sample, rather than my project name. So you can have your own unique, maybe in your nomenclature that you use in ACC, you're putting your project number and a project name, and maybe they do something completely different. So you don't have to match the titles of these things, right? You're in your own environment. You choose what you're kind of bridging together. Who is it sent by, accepted date, and move zoom out of the way. Are there any automations, right? So we can get into the automation side here in a little bit, but that's basically starting to set up the idea that on a normal, recurring, regular basis, I want to make sure that Jeff always has my latest architectural background. So we can set up some automations that says, I'm going to do a schedule publish, and on that schedule publish, make sure that we update the bridge as well as we go through those things, right? So what you do is you actually go into your design collaboration, back into docs, wait for this, we'll drill down into a folder, and then you're essentially going to right click on that folder. You're going to, basically tell it to bridge, and then I'm going to choose that it's your project that I want to bridge to. On your end, you're going to get a sharing request that says Scott wants to share this folder with you. And it's literally going to take my folder and it's going to duplicate it inside of your folder structure. And now those two things are linked. If I make an update and publish to that Revit file, you're going to get the update and the version control of that Revit file in your bridge. So if you're linked to that in your Revit project, your Revit links, it takes a couple things. One is that when I make a change that I'm ready to share with you, I'm going to have to republish that. Right. That's going to go into my folder that I have bridged with you. That's going to update on your end. Your Revit side of things is going to be a reload links or start Revit fresh for the day, right? Or restart Revit, relaunch your project, just like any link would be. And then you're going to see the most updated, latest and greatest of that version of things. So it's not a live link, but it's a nearly live link, I guess is a good way to describe it.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's as live as the last publish, right? And so we've I will tell, which is I've been living in both worlds, and there's some definite benefits to live linking, and there's also some benefits to publishing. Honestly, probably the biggest downfall of the publish process is that when projects get big, publishing takes a while, and so there the processing of the publish file can take a little while. Otherwise, it's and the other I don't know if this has changed at all, but right now the scheduled publishing is still only is it weekly or daily? What's the most frequency you can do it
At
with?
this point.
Right, right.
But at AU, it was talked about that we're working towards the ability to have it be a daily. So, and two things, not only an automated publishing, but also an automated packaging, right? Because those two things go hand in hand. So you can publish a Revit file, but then you can have a package that contains 12 Revit files in a Word doc, in a PDF, and a specification, and something else. And you want that package to be shared, right? So it's going to be that automated system of actually packaging this stuff up so that you can get that repeatability over and over and over again. Rather than going individual file by individual file, I want to send Jeff the entire package, which is all Revit files. Right,
which is cool. So no, that's great. So essentially, I guess tying this even back to the last episode, the bridging is basically you're creating the bridge between the two projects, and then you're essentially, once you do that, you can essentially go to any file or folder within the project and just say this wants to duplicate between these two.
Right.
So then within that, now because it's using published information, now you're going back to the last episode where it's like, okay, are you using a publish consume model? Whatever it is, but there's just no live linking basically.
Yeah, but I've heard rumors that they're working towards that. I mean, the crazy thing is, and we mentioned this last time, like when all this stuff first came out, I was under the impression that no one would live link. Like that's too invasive. I don't want to see stuff that up to date. I'll speak from the architecture standpoint because that's what I did in practice. We were making too many changes. I was copying pieces of Revit file over here on the side and doing stuff. And if I hit sync with central, I didn't want my mechanical engineer to see what I was doing on the side, right? So I didn't think anybody would live link. What we're finding is the majority live link.
Everyone loves the live link. We want raw data. We want the data as fast as possible. Come on, you know that.
It's kind of crazy though to think
It
like
is.
we went from, so 17 years ago it was still, hey, can you upload the latest? Let's even go back to, can you upload the latest CAD file to the FTP site?
Right.
And that was your publish. Right?
Yeah. Once a week, right? Or once every 3 weeks or something like that, right? Because then you go away and do your thing and then you come back. No, but go ahead. Sorry.
Then you found your, like you got to a critical date. There was some milestone, and your structural plotted drawings had sent you over. And you're like, you didn't update your backgrounds. What do you mean? Like there was always that that misstep.
Yeah. I think we underestimate the ability to work within the Revit environment while other stuff's happening, right? I think you start, I think to me, LiveLink, it's like the holy grail of it, right? And being able to not have to deal with a VPN or a WAN accelerator or something like that, but then also have, a company that's not even within your company that normally would be sitting on a server and dealing with that, to be able to live link in their file and have that conversation. I think it's huge, right? It's that. Because even with the publish, right, you still could be dealing with that delay, right? Oh, I'm looking at the file. You're on a Wednesday meeting and you have it linked in, but maybe it's Friday's publish, and you're like, crap, and then now you're back to the FTP of, we got to download the latest version, publish it, all that good stuff. So I think that's probably why the live link is so, pervasive, is because of that. It's eliminating any delay in those conversations when you're collaborating.
I think you hit upon the other side of it is, though, that maybe I'm working along to a project milestone, and maybe one of the other consultants is beyond that milestone. And as the architect, I go to plot, and I'm like, that wasn't supposed to be there yet. We're not ready to show the client yet. So that's where that publish comes in, and being able to do shared or consume gives you that choice to say,
right,
hey, we have a plot this Friday. I don't want to see your new information until Monday morning. And that gives you that ability to not see that stuff right away.
Right. Yeah. What we're actually doing in a project right now, where we have I'm on the contractor side. We have the contractor, all the consultants, this is a project that has a lot of consultants, and we're all living in the same. It's a BIM 360 server because it was started 2 years ago, and we're all living in the same server, live linking back and forth. I mean, it's almost like the Wild Wild West, right? It's just but at the same time, it's we're target value estimating, like it's all real time. It's great, right? But what we're doing is we're using the publish consume model to milestone that stuff. So like the shared folder is basically, that's basically the latest milestone. So we're even though there's 700 versions of a file, like you go to the shared folder, there's maybe 20 versions of it, because those are the milestones. So even though we're doing all this mayhem within the file, we're using the publish and consume, the publish and share, I guess in this case, publish and share as our way to milestone this stuff within the same server. So it can work. Yeah. It can work.
Absolutely can work. There's a question in the chat, which I think is really good from Rick. Doing model coordination, or Clash. First, let's separate those two things, because I saw a really great presentation at Autodesk University that was ZGF architects out of Portland talking about PDX Airport. They're doing, if you haven't flown in and out of Portland, the entire main terminal is being completely redone. It's going to be spectacular when it's done. They talked about how they use model coordination on that project, and he was 30 minutes into an hour presentation before he even brought up the idea of Clash. Right? We almost always tie model coordination with Clash.
Right.
The way that Michael, who did that presentation, Michael and Chip from ZGF, was just using it as a model aggregator and allowing people to jump into model coordination and be able to basically walk through the model without having to know anything about Revit, right? Or launch a gigantic Revit model and wait for an hour for the thing to load.
Yeah.
So what Rick asked is, what's the best way to use model coordination with Bridge? And it all comes down to setting up your coordination spaces, right? So whether you're in a singular account project where your consultants are working in your account or hub, or you're working in a bridge environment, in both situations, you're going to have to set up coordination spaces. What those coordination spaces do in model coordination is they point at a specific folder. And you can have multiple, hundreds. I wouldn't do hundreds or thousands, but you could have multiple coordination spaces set up all to different folders. And so what's going to happen in a bridged environment is that bridge data is going to move into a specified folder. That's where it's going to get copied to. And if you want that to be part of model coordination, you're going to now need to take that. If that's not your coordination space, is that bridged folder, you're going to want to make a copy of that thing and move it into your coordination space folder of choice, right? Or, even better maybe is to start to use the API or other things to add some automation to that, where, hey, if this file comes in on Bridge, I also want a copy of it put in the model coordination space as well, the coordination space there. And that's probably the best way to do it. I would go look, if you guys all have access to Autodesk University, all the recorded stuff that's there, if you go look up the Portland PDX project, model coordination, he gets into some real specifics about how they went about setting up coordination spaces. It's not on Bridge because it was A360. BIM 360. See how easy it is to do.
Right.
BIM 360 and setting up coordination spaces, and how he had it set up specifically for the different zones of the airport, so they could break down specific areas. And I thought it was really, really well done on how they did that. I
think to expand on the question as well, where I could see it getting, I don't want to say complicated, but just adding a little layer of complication would be if you want. So let's say you have three consultants and you're the architect. You're hosting. You have your server. They have their servers. You're bridging all their information. They're bridging yours, right? And you have all these different servers. If you are doing clash detection, like he's saying, and you're having regular coordination meetings, using the issues tool, you're using model coordinate. Ideally, you want all those users on the one server that's doing that work, right? Because that's where the clashing is happening. That's maybe where you're managing the issues. That's maybe where you're pinging people. And so that's one where even with all the stuff, you're still adding those users to this project, and you're still managing them on that one server. And so it's kind of like in that case, you have to kind of choose a server that becomes the host for that coordination process. I think that I don't know if that's exactly what he's asking, but that's where my mind went as well. Is if you're using that tool for that purpose, then you still are probably gonna have to choose one of the servers, and that person's going to be the host of everyone. They can all have their own coordination spaces and do their own clashing on their servers, but to do the collaboration piece where all the users get pinged, their issues and all that stuff.
Somebody's going to be like the main admin of
right.
Clash.
Yep. Yes. Exactly.
So
There was another
that-
question that I didn't want to miss that I think we'll touch on another topic. So this changes a little bit, but somebody asked about exporting some of the data to CSV. I think they were talking about the project list, but I think this ties on something you mentioned when we were chatting before, which is some of the Power BI and data exporting and integration. So maybe that's an opportunity to talk about that a little bit, because I actually haven't. I've seen some release notes about it, and I use Power BI for a lot of other things, and I actually haven't seen too much about what's coming down the road with Power BI and some of the data integrations with ACC.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good segue. I think there was one point I want to hit upon before I
Sure,
left
yeah.
that. I totally forgot.
It's all good. It's all
Move
good.
on. It's good. So I mean, maybe by thumbs up on the chat or whatever. How many people are using Power BI today? Hopefully several. We won't pause and wait too long, and we'll get the reaction there. So what you have in ACC is basically direct access into an entire series of Power BI dashboards that are already configured for you and ready to go. So what I mean by that, so in ACC, and this goes back to what Jeff and I talked about earlier, a lot of people don't even know that something like it's Revit Cloud Worksharing, right? That's all you get. You don't even realize that you go to acc.autodesk.com and you have all of this other stuff available to you. One of the tabs you have available by default is called Insight. So I'm in the Insight tab here. So if you just subscribe just to Autodesk Docs, right? Autodesk Docs is kind of the base case for everything in the cloud. This is your container. This is your file structure. This is your permissioning. All of your folders exist in Docs. You will also have access. It's an admin control, so whoever's administrating your account can flip on the little switch for do they have access to Insight or not. So if you don't see Insight, ask your administrator, can we turn it on? Once you go to the Insight tab, what you're going to see is basically this screen on the left, which is my dashboard. So if I go into some of these dashboards here, we're going to start seeing some different kind of out-of-the-box stuff that you can do. These are not Power BI, by the way. These are just like out-of-the-box kind of what we call cards, dashboard cards that you can load up, like the project address. So you actually get a map of, where does a project exist? What's the weather like today on site as that's loading up? I'm not even sure I guess I do on my sample project. And then some like other cards that you can have or not, and this is fully customizable. Where am I at as far as quality and safety, and where are my outstanding issues on the project as these things load up? And I probably said this before, Jeff, on your call, and I say it to a lot of customers. When I'm on more on Zoom and other things, these things take a lot longer to load. And
Of course they do. They always do.
You're also running Zoom at the same time. So they've kind of loaded up now. But like, what project issues? Where are my open RFIs and submittals? These are just some ideas of these cards. And then you can drill in specifically into risk and design issues and project controls, et cetera, et cetera. What we're getting at here to get to Power BI, you come down to the bottom of this and you're going to go into this area called the data connector. Now, the data connector is something that can extract metadata from your ACC project. And I'll have to try to remember. I don't think that all of this is available. I think Insight is available in BIM 360, but I'm not sure that all of the data connector stuff is available in BIM 360. Obviously, it is an ACC.
Mm-hmm.
What this data connector allows you to do is essentially extract data either as a one-time thing, so I can run an extraction here, which I've already done one a couple days ago, or I can schedule a data extraction. So what does that data extraction do? It actually creates an entire series of essentially CVS. Somebody asked earlier about common delimited files, an entire folder full of common delimited files that are all data about the project, whether they're administrative functions, what people are doing, so on and so forth. What all of these things can do is then feed a series of Power BI dashboards, and we give you out of the box by this link that's up here in the kind of top right-hand corner, a Power BI template gallery. These are all completely free. They're all available to all of you guys that have access to any ACC project today, because this is not a module that costs you anything extra. This is stuff that everybody has. If I continue to scroll down here, you can see there's actually a lot of kind of Power BI dashboards. So let me just pause on one of these. This is totally off the cuff, like an ACC forms dashboard for the account and for the project. So if you want an overall account status of how are all my forms doing? So forms in ACC are fillable forms. You have a site observation report checklist as a form that you want to do during construction administration. So that's a form that you can create or upload a fillable PDF and create the form out of it inside of ACC. And you can track the status across the account through Power BI of all of those forms that are being generated for, in this case, the project, or if you have forms for a particular, no, I'm sorry, for the account, or if you have them for the particular project, you can track all of those things as well. So what we do in the Power BI template gallery is give you both the CSV template that you can download, which is essentially the PBI, am I getting it right? PBIT,
PBIX or PBIT? Yeah.
It is appropriate for that particular dashboard, or more importantly, in most cases, is the connector template. So what the connector template does, this is like the local version. The connector template basically connects your Power BI directly to your project in the cloud and allows you to extract that data directly from a project rather than doing it locally, right? So this is where you kind of get more of the automation side of things. So some of the more, for me, some of the more exciting things on this is here's checklists, here's assets. So assets are a really, really big upcoming part of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, being able to identify objects in models that you want to track. And this can be tracked as far as identifying assets during design and what phase of design are we in with that particular object that's in the model. Or assets can be obviously during construction, right? So assets can be things you want to track as they're actually being fabricated, shipped to the site, installed, commissioned, tested, turned over. All of those kind of statuses can all be tracked through our assets module, and we can color code our models through that assets module as well. So these Power BI templates allow you to look at assets across either accounts or projects, and this is really all set up this way. One of the more exciting ones, I think, this one's brand new. Notice that it only currently has the CSV template. It does not have the connector template yet. I've been told it's coming. Is essentially activities dashboards through Power BI for the account or the project. So what does activities mean? As an administrator, you want to know who's in your project and what are they doing, right?
Yes.
And so that's what like this project level dashboard gets you. So I made one really simple for my project. Let me pull up Power BI. This is not the best example. I'm going to admit that right off the bat. Let me slide that over to this other screen and hopefully maximize it and give Power BI a second. There it goes to catch up. And so from my 004 Snowden Towers project that you saw me do earlier, by the way, Snowden Towers is the new sample data set that comes with Revit that Paul Aubin and Harlan chatted about. They had a class at AU all about the data set, how it came to be and what it means. There's actually a really cool backstory there, so go and check it out. So in my little sample project, like what's going on? So like number of activities by users and service. So, wow, surprise, surprise. I'm, as far as my team, I've been using docs on this project to some degree. I've got, a small number of issues. I've got 9 issues, it looks like, identified in this particular project. And I've created, 427, or it looks like 463 total sheets. I've published out this many number of sheets in this. So it's that whole dashboard about what are my users doing? What are the parts of the tool, the Autodesk Construction Cloud? If you subscribe to, let's say, Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, which is really the Revit Cloud Worksharing component, you also have access to model coordination and to the design collaboration module, to insights, to creating issues, to docs. So from an administrator standpoint, what are my teams doing? How are they using these tools? Where are they using it to be more efficient? Where are they lacking? Where maybe I need to provide more training so that we start to use some of these tools more effectively.
Right.
And so I think that's some of the power of this. Now what's really cool about these Power BI dashboards is that for those that know Power BI, and that's not me, is through some of these tools up here, you can actually go and here's publish. You can go publish these things out, and then I can take this Power BI dashboard, embed it back in my homepage dashboard, and have it be one of these extra things that shows up on here. This could be, there's Power BI dashboards for model health, right? So like maybe one of these cards is my current model health state. How many warnings do I have? How many in-place families am I using? That's a potential. Another Power BI dashboard could be, how are you as a user? How have you been using the product? Where are you using docs more, and maybe where are you using model coordination more on your different various projects? So I think it's like a super exciting thing to be able to get it. We talk about granular data. This is giving you guys access to this huge amount of data, and maybe using the templates as they are out of the box, or because they're just Power BI templates, for those that are kind of maybe more power users, reconfigure those templates into anything you want, or dig through those common delimited files and kind of like find the information that's important to you, and then you can display it back in any kind of graphical UI Power BI system that you want.
What I'm most excited about I think I first heard this a few weeks ago, probably pre-AU during a call or something like that, about how they're adding more connectors and stuff, is the connector side of it. And I think it seems like a couple people in the chat too are Power BI users. So to me, what, having a data connector instead of constantly having to pull the information is always a bonus, right? Having to export refresh is just not conducive. But having the data connector and then having data connectors to other things in Power BI, and then being able to publish that dashboard back up, now you're able to make visualizations on that insights page that are actually even showing more than just ACC information. And that's where I'm excited, right? If you have a financial program that is tied to some of the information, you can pull out together in Power BI, and then you can publish that to your ACC dashboard. And so if you're using Procore, Textura, SAP, ACC, you go down the list, right? That to me, when I saw there's a connector, because for a while, especially in BIM 360, there was a lot of workarounds that we were trying to get to just pull down certain things like issues or whatever, and pull them on a frequent basis and try to automate that process without connectors. And so having a connector is huge. That's huge. And so I haven't played enough with it to see how flexible the connectors are, and like you said, like what what control we have for the data, what data exists in those connectors yet. So I'm excited to kind of do that. But I think just having that exist now is huge, right? That's
absolutely.
And you showed a couple examples there, but I can think of a dozen more that we could really start pulling from the information, which is great.
One of the more exciting things they talked about at AU was this kind of data model. It's currently in beta. So if you go to the beta, now it's feedback.autodesk.com site, you can sign up for this data model. One thing that's really cool is we can now basically publish Revit model data in ACC, do an extraction of the model itself, and then query that using Power BI and put that back into dashboards. So access to model level data in a Revit model without having to open Revit and have it display things in views, because one Power BI capability is to use our large model viewer. So query a model, I'll just make up some stupid example. Show me all the 1 hour rated walls. Boom, in the Power BI dashboard in the viewer, it shows you all the 1 hour rated walls, it isolates them out of your model without you having to go and find them, right, so to speak. Like, there's some really, really cool possibilities with being able to take a model, extract all of the data out of it, and be able to access without opening Revit, open that model and have it displayed using different dashboards and different Power BI visualization techniques.
Definitely. So one of the things that I saw one of the dashboards for was issue tracking and stuff. And so I think you may have mentioned even in our pre-read to this, talking about some of the new markup tools. But I think in general, something that's valuable to think along the lines of the theme of using ACC beyond just cloud work sharing. I think the issue tool in general is something that probably design teams would probably gain a lot of value in understanding that it exists and how to use it. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about the issues tool itself, and then maybe talk about some of the features that have come up, like the markup within issues and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, finally. So this is something that has been asked about for a long time, and it just went live at our last ACC release, which was just this month, I believe. I think November was the latest release. So
yeah, it was 20. It was 20. It was like just before or after AU. I remember seeing a big blog post or email showing a whole bunch of new features got dumped out. And then you get the one thing I will add is it's getting a little better, but showing users where the new features are, like, when they're released, is something that can probably be done a little better. There's a little green star that pops up, and then sometimes you get a pop-up that tells you there's a new feature where you are, but like maybe just I don't know, just some sort of a release note, like when you first log in. I don't know, I just feel like it's weird because sometimes you have to like dig into the tool in order to see the release note, as opposed to like, maybe I just want to see the overall and then I'll go in the tool to check it out, like, whereas like I'll go in and there'll be like a release note that's probably like a month old because I haven't used whatever tool for a while, and then I'm like, oh cool, there's a new feature there. But anyways.
No, you're absolutely right. So I was looking at one model, and I remembered I already had a tab open just to save us some time here because of the kind of lag that Zoom creates. But if I'm now, so something that was highly requested. So I'm now in issues. I'm basically in issue edit mode. I've gone in. I've picked an issue kind of status. What is it? In this case, it was a design issue, if I remember correctly. And so design issue is what I picked, and I picked a location in the model. What it's going to do now is, so what the requested feature is I'm making the issue, but I also want to add some markups on top of that, right? So we didn't have the ability to do that before. You could drop an issue pin, these guys, like these little yellow guys that are showing up, and they're yellow because they're color coded depending on status. So the yellow ones are open, they're not resolved yet, or they haven't been closed out at this particular point. And so what I had to do in the past was essentially drop the issue pin, publish the issue pin if I wanted it published out to everybody, and then go into the actual markup tool, make the markup, use the screen capture utility, and kind of like do it myself. That's all taken care of for us now. So now you can finally actually make a markup inside of an issue. So I'm in the middle of creating issue 13 here. Now I've got the markup tool available to me on the side. When I do that, what it's going to do is essentially thumbnail where I'm at in the kind of view that I'm in. So I'm in pin mode, I'm active, and now I can use kind of like all my markup tools, and I'll just do oh my gosh, with Zoom it didn't even let me scribble. I was trying to scribble quickly and it totally failed. I can do some particular thing, so now obviously I can pan around. So now what I can do is actually make the markup inside of the issue. So now when I publish that out, Jeff, I wanted to explain to you, here's the issue and I need to move this door over 3 feet. I could use the freehand tool or the clouds or the dimension tools and actually mark that up inside the issue. And when you go into the actual issues themselves, you're going to actually see that thumbnail and be able to click on it and be able to click on to see my markups inside of it, right? So it's kind of an all-in-one tool now, which is finally actually happened. There's the one, no, it's not the one I just created. What does it say? November 30th. Here's the one I just created. Yeah, so one of these here. If I actually go into the issue, it'll actually show me that that's what we did in that particular space. Now, I also went back to the team and said, okay, I want to go back because I've got this whole series of issues that I made in the past, or maybe I have some markups that I have made, but I also want to now turn those markups into issues. And they said, yeah, we're not quite there yet. That's on the roadmap to do. So just, watch for that someday. You've already got a clouded thing. You've already got some notes or something like that. Eventually, you're going to be able to take those kind of pre-existing markups and then turn them into an issue as well. But at least at this point, we have issues, markups inside of issues.
Yes, and that is big because what we were doing the same thing where we would essentially use markups first and then go back and eventually pin them with issues, just because it was kind of the workflow. For anyone who hasn't used the issue tool, we are fine, especially in pre-construction during the design process, especially when we're working as the CM with design teams as well, all within it. It's become an extremely valuable tool in centralizing what you would normally do as like a Bluebeam Studio, or like, however right now that you're marking up drawings, specs, and models, right? It's centralizing it all into one area. So, one of the things that I love so much about it, and as how we're using it is, they, within an issue, you have the ability to create types, subtypes. There's categories of issues and stuff. And so by doing that, you can do things like a constructability review, a clash detection, and then maybe a design review, all within the issue tool, within the project, within the server. And then you have this hub of all of that information that you can filter and sort. And what's awesome about it is you could do it on a PDF, on a sheet, in the model, right, wherever you are, but it's still located. So right now, if you're doing like Bluebeam markups over here and like, I don't know, some sort of 3D view with snips over here in Revit, and then maybe you have specs over here that you're doing it, and now you have all these Excel sheets and markups and all this other stuff everywhere that you're managing, throughout the design process. This has really become for us like a great way to centralize all of that information. And so anytime they add more features to it, but I wanted to bring that up because I think for those who are just using it for Revit collaboration, right? That to me is a massive benefit that you have had since you started BIM 360, right? And so why would you not at least try it?
Round trip with the plugin back into Revit as well, right?
Yes, so correct. I was gonna ask that, but I saw you didn't have Revit open, so I wasn't gonna go down that rabbit.
I should have totally had Revit open, but yes, there is a plugin. So imagine, you have a user it's a purely a Revit user. They don't want to go to the cloud. They don't want to go to the ACC site at all, right? Mm-hmm. They open Revit, and you've assigned them an issue. They can filter by issues only assigned to me. Now in Revit, they have the issue panel. They can actually go respond to it. They can pick up your comment, so to speak. They can type their own comments back in. They can @ you, right? So that in the comment section, they can say @ Jeff. And now you're going to get tagged, and you're going to get notified that there's a comment associated with that thing. Mm-hmm. And from within Revit, they can say that status went from open to resolved, right? And now you're the administrator. Now you can go back and check their work and say, yes, it's closed out, it's archived, that thing is done. So it's that round trip process between creating issues in a cloud environment and round tripping them back into the authoring software so that the people that are actually doing the work can actually get the stuff done that they need to get done.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
I think it's really, really huge. So the question came up about markups, right? So yeah, are we going to expand the markup tools? I was going to say arguing. Maybe arguing is not the best word. I've been persuading the teams inside of Autodesk that we need to improve the markup tools for quite some time, right? So we would probably all agree like Bluebeam is the markup king. Is that a fair statement, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I
think nearly 99.9% of my customers use Bluebeam for some, to some degree, for PDF markups. Mm-hmm. What could we do differently so there's two things. We're not going to displace Bluebeam. I don't think we're at the point where we're saying you should use ACC markups over Bluebeam Studio for what you're doing, because Bluebeam's too ingrained in your work processes. But what can we do differently as far as the markups are concerned themselves that says that maybe we might start doing some more in ACC and maybe doing more internal reviews maybe in ACC between the consultants and us, and then maybe still using Bluebeam Studio for our client reviews or something to that degree. One I hear time and time again is symbols in a symbol library, right? Bluebeam has the ability to do a symbols library. You can create repeatable markups that you can. The one I always hear is like a duplex outlet. You want to go, I need one here, 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 and here. And you can quickly place those things rather than using our markup tool, which is freehand, and you're drawing those things in by hand individually. So I think that would be one area that we could definitely improve upon is creating a symbols library as well. You guys can pick from and use those markup symbols over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's funny. As you were talking, someone in the chat was saying those exact things. Which, if I'm the one making those decisions personally, having now used the issues tool as a fully integrated piece of or centralized piece of data, that I would say, use a piece of text then that says R in a square box and copy it. I don't know, make something that you can copy. But yes, obviously adding features to it would be beneficial. But I don't know, to me, the benefits of the collaboration and the centralized data having dealt with it now, to me outweigh the symbols. But that's just me. So I mean,
yeah, no, I would tend to agree. And so here's the other side of things. Like, I heard this a lot at AU too. We're moving away from a file-based structure. Autodesk wants to take the lead on being a data company where the idea is we don't care anymore where your data comes from. You want to work in Revit? Great. If you want to work in ArchiCAD, that's fine. You want to use Bluebeam for markups? That's an integration that we could plug in through our API. I think at some point down the road, like a lot of these things are all going to come together. We want the Autodesk platform, ACC, to be the container for where all of this stuff comes to. But we want to give you guys the freedom to use the tools that make the most sense to you. Now, I know that sounds completely crazy. That does not sound like Autodesk at all. Like, we want you in our environment, like we want you in all of our individual tools. I think ultimately the goal is to create the platform that we as an industry as a whole work inside of, and then you guys get to use the tools of your choice to get your work done. That make sense?
No, most certainly. On that note, there was somebody who asked a question about, and I'm not sure, I don't know if too many of these newer features have come out. I know they're coming on the roadmap, which has to do with, I think he said the collaboration module. I think it applies to probably collaboration docs and model coordination, but it's really the conditioning and sorting and filtering of the models in the viewer. And so, he mentions Navisworks, which, I mentioned this when I did my live stream last year on the model coordination part of ACC and the death of Navisworks and how is it, how much of what you do in Navisworks can be done in model coordination. I do know that there's some newer conditioning and sorting and filtering of models in the viewer happening. I don't think he mentioned search sets, but I mean, the truth is I think the filtering and the searching, or the model filtering and conditioning is getting to that point. Is there anything that I don't remember if there's anything that you can really show right now that's released?
Probably not prepared to show it, unfortunately. But the one thing that I know that we're working towards. So Jeff, I know you were an Assemble user, right? So the model conditioning from Assemble.
Am an Assemble user still to this day.
still an Assemble user. So Assemble Systems, for those that don't know, was a company we acquired. Gosh, I don't know how. Seems like a long time ago now, many years ago now. So that model conditioning and that model ability to pivot table models, is that a good way to describe it for those that are Excel users, right?
Yeah, sort of,
coming more and more and more to the ACC side. In fact, I think in our last release, I'll have to go back and look at the release notes, we do now have basically a table structure in the model coordination module that allows you to look at the conditioning of the models and then start adding additional data back to those things. And I'm sorry, I'm not showing it on the screen because I just don't have it up and running to
I think if memory serves me right, and so I guess to add to that and answer, I remember who asked it. Sorry, I think it was Sebs16. There's a conditioning tool now that exists. I believe if you have to start a new project or a new coordination space in order to take there's an entire new Clash engine, and with that there's a new viewer. So you may not see it in some of your old stuff, but there are some things that are being implemented. One is, you've probably seen the conditioning now. You can do it and if statements to start conditioning some data down. I can't wait. There's going to be color by property really soon, which I'm super excited about. And there's also the biggest issue that we've run into is saving your conditioning to the view within Model Coordinate, which you can't do still, but you should be able to do anytime according to Autodesk. So that'll be huge. So then you can do your conditioning, and then you could save that so it holds that conditioning for your clashes and so on.
State, and then your other users can go back and go to that same model state and understand.
Exactly. Awesome. Yeah, very cool.
One thing I wanted to show you.
Yeah, let's do it. Yep.
I know we're beyond time a little bit, so hopefully.
Yeah, I want to make sure you got some of the stuff that you wanted out too. So let's. I think we hit a lot of it. I think sheets and PDFs are probably the only thing we didn't touch on. So maybe real quickly, if you can talk a little bit about that. I think that's where you're going, anyways, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something that's for me was really compelling. So maybe we go back to the Bluebeam story. So just PDF creation in general. I just learned this like a month ago. Starting in 2022. When you create publish your Revit models out to ACC, and I believe it's BIM 360 as well, but I'm really doing everything from the ACC perspective tonight. Every 2D view that gets created in the past used to be an SVG file format. It's a lightweight graphics vector file format, right, that made them lightweight and easy to move around. Starting in 2022, we changed that. All these graphics that you are looking at on the screen as 2D graphics are PDFs in the background. Like, blew my mind. Like, what? We're looking at PDFs? So my question was, well, why aren't we giving access to users to the PDFs? And they went, well, we are. I'm like, well, that's not very discoverable. So check this out. So I'm in this. This works from build, right? So this does not work from docs yet. I say yet. I don't have any insight right now. The plan is to keep this in build. I don't know if it's gonna make its way down. But in build, there's this idea of sheets. And so for those that are old BIM 360 users, remember we used to have the plans and the project files and plans folders, right? Project files was treating things as files, where plans would take a Revit file and extract all the individual sheets out and name them individually, like you're seeing on the screen right here.
Right.
So what happens in build is we still do that with sheets. We do this sheet extraction. But if I check, actually, you know what? It's really kind of funny. You have to start with a UI where you pick on one. We're going to go to the little ellipses on the end, and we're going to hit export. And when we hit export, we're listed with export one sheet, and it doesn't really give you any indication that this is a PDF. And I think this is where we need to make this a little bit more apparent. Now, let's imagine I just want a clean set of PDFs. So I'm going to unselect all. I don't want to show my published markups. I don't want to show my I could show hyperlinks, which is actually really cool, because then all of your section detail callouts are all hyperlinked to each other inside of ACC. If I want my issues and those kind of things, I can add all of that, and I can hit export. But check this out. If I go down now that I'm inside of it and I start clicking these off, watch my counter in the top right corner there. Export 4 sheets, export 5 sheets. In fact, if I just go here and go boom, oops. Oh, I just screwed it up. Darn it. See, the UI is a little funny. So let me try this one more time and see if I can get it right. I'm going to do one. I'm going to go to export. And now I'm going to go select none of the extra features, and now I'm going to pick the whole thing. 87 sheets. Export. What it's going to do in the background is it's going to now give me a download, and I'm in Chrome, so in a moment you'll see maybe a little Chrome download thing up here in my bar, my extensions bar at the top. And I'm going to get a zip file of all of those, and I'm sorry, not all of those PDFs, because I've done multiple. It's doing a multi-sheet PDF, so it's going to be a PDF file with 84 sheets inside of it that then I can open up and view.
So these are the just to reiterate, these are the published sheets from the Revit published settings that you're exporting as a PDF from build.
Yes,
essentially.
Absolutely.
And if you want, you can even include all the build information, like markups, RFIs, whatever you have all over the sheets. That's really neat.
As an administrator, you can set this up ahead of time to say, what is my nomenclature? So in this case, the G sheets are general, so it knows those, right? And then if I come down here, my A sheets are architectural and my S sheets are structural. And how do I want this thing to actually stack the sheets? So you can see in my case that my G's are first, and then my A's, and they're in the proper order. Guess what? When I make the PDF, they're in the proper order, however I defined it to be, right? And you can actually go in here and you can shuffle these things around by sheet order as well. So you can actually set these things up ahead of time. So what got me really excited about this is I think we as an industry waste an extraordinary amount of time sitting at our computer, because when you're spooling off a 200 sheet set of PDFs, the computer's basically worthless, right? For a while. I mean, yeah, you could, if you're doing it from Revit, the Revit print, could you open another session of Revit and go back to work? Sure. Right. There's a really exciting new feature that's coming down the line, which is a background print PDF. As part of the Revit Futures site. For those that aren't familiar with that, you can go check it out. But that's going to allow you to actually go print a PDF and then go back to work and let it spool off in the background without, consuming your entire machine to do that.
You could also now, in theory, you could have non-Revit users producing the PDF sets. So,
Yeah.
a project manager who maybe isn't as Revit, fluent, but is, is wanting to publish the set or whatever. There's a ton of people in the chat saying they want this in docs as well as not just build. As you mentioned, I don't think it's there yet, but it is something to think about because when you are using docs as a collaboration tool to be able to access model and sheet data, which we have some projects where that is the case, where we have, let's say, estimators, for example, who are in there. And we have them opening, the individual Revit models, look at the 3D, in docs, and then they're even going to the sheets because there's also that, for anyone who hasn't used docs before, when you have Revit sheets and the 3D model in there, you do get some of that Revit connection where you can click an element in the 2D sheet, and you can click it and say like view properties and all that good stuff, kind of like we get in Revit. But printing from that, like if you wanted to print the A series from that, you got to do one at a time, and it does this goofy thing where it makes a high resolution JPEG as a tab in Chrome, and then you have to export it, and it's a nightmare. There's no way to print a PDF set of those sheets from that, essentially.
Here's the other thing that's cool. So it's done. How long does 87 sheets from Revit spool off using Bluebeam PDF Writer or the built-in Windows PDF Writer? I'm out of touch. 87 sheets would take.
With a good computer, it's pretty quick, but at the same time, it's not that fast. I think you're probably taking advantage of the fact that the sheets themselves have been processed already, right? Is most likely, because the processing happens on when you publish, and so now you're just essentially making the PDF side of it, as opposed to from Revit, you're essentially processing and PDFing at the same time, right?
So now I'd like the team to go one step further. Like, so the download's okay, but now it's in my downloads folder. I don't want it there. What I want is I want to go export, and then I want the export PDF to go into a folder that's already in docs and be accessible to whoever role has rights to that particular folder. So the PDF is there and accessible. Like, that's what makes sense to me. So right now it's one more step. It's on my machine. So now I have to go to my.
Or at least at a minimum, you could pick the location when you click export instead of downloads, and then you could just pick to Autodesk Docs and throw it back up, right? At a minimum, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. That's how it should be for sure.
That's really cool, though. I did not know Build you could do that in Build, and that is a problem that we've run into. We fortunately have Build on most of our jobs, so I could show people how to do this on our end, but we have run into that on the Docs side where it's non-Revit users who are actually accessing the models and the sheets and the information are constantly asking, well, how do I print? If I just want to print these two sheets I'm looking at, how do I do it? And they're in docs looking at the sheet. I'm like, well, yeah, you can hit print, but then it's just going to make a tab that has this goofy high resolution JPEG that then you can print to a PDF from that or whatever. It's not. Nah, very cool. But yeah, everyone wants that in docs, so let's put that as a feature request.
I think we need it to be the base case. I think if they're already processed and they're already there, so give people the access to do it. So let me maybe put an asterisk on this. It's available to everybody through Build. It's also available to everybody through Docs currently through the API. So you're gonna have to know a little bit about Autodesk API. What it's gonna end up doing is it's gonna if you there's a current example that you can use that's readily available through the API today. What it looks like is a window that's essentially split that shows you your project, your ACC project on one side, and then where do you want those on the other side. And so like allows you to take the PDFs that are already been made from Docs and move them over into a local folder. Yeah. Right? So there is the ability to get to these PDFs from Docs. It's just not as readily available as it is in Build to kind of the general public.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. I just want to make sure we're not missing any good questions.
We're way beyond time. I appreciate everybody staying on.
No, there's some great questions, and everyone's still charged here. So I wanted to make sure we didn't miss any good questions, and I'll make sure you didn't miss anything important that you wanted to talk about. But I think we hit a lot of really good stuff. But it's funny because a lot of this also ties back to the previous episode from 2 years ago, because none of this works, for example, if you don't set up the correct publish settings, if you're not publishing your models correctly. So this is definitely a great sort of part two to the first go around. I don't see any questions that we didn't fully miss here.
Real quick, share my screen real quick.
Yep, go for it. Yep.
Futures. So this is the Revit futures, and I just Google it. I go Revit roadmap. is the
I'll put a link to the roadmap too.
Yeah.
So in the description.
So it gives you the Revit architecture roadmap. It gives you our, highly famous safe harbor statement about, don't make any, these are not guaranteed and all of that good stuff. But what we're currently working on, and this right now is just architecture, right? And if you scroll down, there's MEP and structures as well. But what we're currently working on, what's up next? What's down the road, like maybe a couple releases away? What have we most recently launched? And then what are we absolutely not going to do? And so one of the most highly requested things is, and it's
I never see the not now. I never saw that in the in the roadmap.
backwards compatibility. So those two things are highly requested. It doesn't make sense for us to do them at this point. We call this Revit roadmap. It's actually a really great location to keep abreast of what's happening in the Revit world.
And on the backwards compatibility thing, just to keep in mind for folks, and I think we might have even mentioned this 2 years ago. I don't know if we did, but just so everyone knows, the Revit, your ACC or BIM 360 hubs, the first time you cloud workshare a model on it, that is the version of Revit that your hub becomes associated with. So as you guys are thinking about moving, upgrading, and moving things, just be wary of that. That if for some reason, like if you're trying to cloud workshare a 2024 file on a hub that was created using 2022 initially, you won't see that hub when you're in Revit. And there's always, I run into this all the time. I can't see it. I don't understand why I can't see it. It's because your hub is associated with Revit 2022. So I think that's both BIM 360 and ACC, right?
Yeah.
I believe.
There's an asterisk there. That's both of them. Once you start Revit Cloud Worksharing in a project, that project is locked to that version with an asterisk. If you use Revit Cloud Upgrade to upgrade the entire project that's in ACC or BIM 360, now the entire project, let's imagine it started in Revit 22, you can use Revit Cloud Upgrade to go to 24. Now it's in the whole entire project.
And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because you can't go backwards still. So just be wary of that, right? So similar to Revit, even though it's Revit Cloud upgrading, if you move a hub to 2024, that hub cannot be a 2022 hub. We went through this to try and figure out, I don't even think you can strip it of all the files and return the hub. The hub that's it, man. It is. And so I think we've actually archived a hub at one point in time because we screwed that up. And luckily it was early enough in a project, but I learned that the hard way. We basically had to shelf a hub and recreate a new one because we realized that it was locked and you can't, even if you delete all the files, remove everything, go for it. I haven't, according to Autodesk, we couldn't roll it back to an earlier version. So pay attention to that.
Yeah, definitely pay attention. Here's a cool little Revit 24 tidbit to maybe leave you guys with. Did you know that in Revit 2024, you can now link in as a coordination model a previous version of Revit into your file without upgrading it?
It doesn't upgrade?
Yes. So Revit 24 has this. So we've had this idea of a coordination model in Revit for the last couple of releases, but the coordination model was Navisworks, right? It was an NWC, D.
It was an NWC or D, but you couldn't do anything with it. It was awkward. You couldn't click it. You couldn't snap to it. So it was this weird ghost file, and it had a very awful visual to it as well.
So in Revit 24, we've opened up the coordination model file format to anything that is viewable in the cloud platform. So if you can view it in ACC, you can now link to it. That includes Revit files that are in. Let's imagine you're in Revit 24, and for some reason you have an old file of the original building in Revit 19, you can now link it in and have it be a background. It's now clickable. You can actually click on it and snap to it and get to the property data. You can't edit it or anything. But it's now a background file that will not upgrade, right?
It won't do a temp upgrade every time you load Revit.
Correct.
And so does that file has to be published and processed on ACC though, or on the cloud, on the cloud server?
It could be a SketchUp file, or a MicroStation file, or an IFC file, or anything that is viewable in ACC can now be linked into a Revit file via this coordination model through the cloud. So
cool.
It's a really cool feature.
I'm gonna test that out for sure.
Yeah, I love it.
I didn't realize. I knew that there was model coordination or coordination model updates. I thought they just made it so you can click Navis files finally in Revit, but I guess it's more than that. So I'll have to dig it up. Thanks for the tip.
It's like 60, I'll say 60 plus file formats that can now be linked as a coordination model in Revit.
Oh, somebody just asked point clouds. I was going to ask that too.
Well, point clouds are viewable as far as their bubbles, their photo bubbles are concerned. So I don't know if that's there yet, but there are some.
That's an interesting one though, right? Because right now the only way to get the point clouds into Revit is to save them as RCSs, right?
Yeah.
And so if you but right now the only way to view point clouds in ACC or BIM 360 is RCS, anyways. I think, right? So it does. It's the same thing. You still have to create it. So. Whatever. Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic, Scott. There's been some great questions. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more questions. So you guys feel free to comment on the video below or reach out to Scott. I'll put a link to his Twitter account here in the description. And I'll make sure if there's any questions that I can't answer in the comments, I'll make sure to ping him and say, head on over to YouTube and answer the questions as well. Or reach out to me and I can forward the information. But always a pleasure. Exploring this new frontier with you, and I promise you guys, like this is it's different. It seems complicated, and there's a lot of moving parts with ACC, but I firmly believe that it's the right direction, and so you guys definitely spend some time getting to know it and understanding what's going on within that environment. I promise you, it's definitely not going away, and it's definitely gonna change the way we do what we do. So
it's the base case for everything we're planning on doing around our data model, right? So
100%.
Information thing is all based on our cloud, so it's huge. It's a huge part of it for sure.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thanks again for joining me. This has been awesome.
Thanks, everybody. It was fun, as always. Well, thanks for having me.
Of course, and everyone, thanks for joining. This is the last live stream officially of the year. I've got
that was the last one.
Yeah, I've got a few videos planned that'll be publishing. I'm going to be on a couple other streams, so checking out for that, and we'll see if I feel like jumping on maybe for a special edition towards the end of the year. But thank you guys for joining again. Again, head on over to bimbox.bimafterdark.com if you're in the market for a new laptop or desktop. And of course, head on over to community.bimafterdark.com if you're interested in checking out the community and seeing what that has to offer. And then, of course, subscribe to the channel if you're the first time here. We'll keep cranking up that, 81 point something thousand and work our way towards 100,000. That's the goal here.
Subscribers.
And yeah, thanks again, guys. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, everybody.